Welcome to That Sounds Terrific in the 585. Join hosts Nick Koziel and Christine Green as they spotlight the incredible leaders, visionaries, and innovators shaping Rochester and the 585 community. From transformative stories to big ideas, we celebrate the people making our community a better place to live, work, and thrive. So sit back, relax, and listen to what makes the 585 sound terrific.
Hello, welcome to That Sounds Terrific in the 585 with Nick Koziel and Christine Green. That's me. Today we have Ben Albert on the podcast. Welcome, Ben. We're so excited to have you with us.
I'm excited to be here. Let's have some fun today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Ben, are you a Rochesterian your whole life, or did you move to this area?
Born and raised. So to break it down simply, from Brighton, but went to Penfield schools.
Okay.
I've lived in Canandaigua. I've lived in Brockport. I've lived in the city. I've lived in Greece. Never have I gotten any farther than Canandaigua. So born and raised.
But you've really hopped around the 585, and that's what we love. You know our area.
Yeah. Better than me. I'm not native, so I have to be jealous. Transplant. So
yeah.
And Ben's and I was gonna say Ben's no stranger to this podcast. I mean, you've actually probably been on more than anyone now. Because you're returning for a third time, I think, right? Because you helped me out with episode 99 and kind of turned the seats on me right before the big 100. And we were talking about a number of things that you've done in the past, and I'm like, it's time you come back on because you've done some really cool things since then, and you haven't been on with Christine. So it's always good to bring back some guests that are absolutely terrific like you, Ben. So
you, Nick, have been on my show a couple times. You've even been in my local segment called Rochester Business Connections. So shout out to Nick for coming on Rochester Business Connections.
Yeah. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Ben, and being a part of the things that you're doing. So why don't you tell us just a little bit, about us, update on what's going on with Ben and how you're involved.
How long do we have?
Well, I don't know. How long do you have, Christine? We can make it a long. This is a 7-part episode with Ben Albert.
See where it takes us.
Yeah.
I always like to say my one goal is to get the knowledge, the wisdom, the ideas, the services from the people who have it to the people who need it. I get to bridge that gap. And I am in the need it category a lot of times. The reason I started a Rochester business podcast during the pandemic, Rochester Business Connections, was because I needed some. I wanted to learn how to be a better business person. So I've been podcasting, business podcasts in Rochester since 2020. When you look at getting the knowledge from the people who have it to the people who need it, the podcast is where I learn and get the information out to more people. The marketing company is where I help businesses, whether it's a thought leader like a speaker or a podcaster, or a local business like a cremation or funeral home, reach the right clients, the people that need that service, that need that thing that they're offering. And Nick's also a member of my community, GrowGetters ONLY, where our motto is we all grow together, and that's for the peer-to-peer support. So whether I'm in a mentorship role, a mentee role, or at GrowGetters ONLY in the peer-to-peer, really my one goal is to learn and teach and get the right information from the people who have it to the people who need it.
I love that.
Yeah. Ben is one of those guys that I've said this about you a lot, Ben, actually. So what's really awesome is I know that I can ask you a question about business, or I could even try to give you business, and you are always going to give me the right person to connect to that service. Sometimes it's you, and a lot of times you're like, I could do this. I could do a good job, but you know who'd do a better job? And then you give me this person's name. And I love that about you because it just speaks to your genuineness. It speaks to your, connectiveness. And then the understanding that although you can do a lot of different things, you like to stay in a certain wheelhouse and you're true to yourself. And I think that that's awesome. So, but I wanted to ask, can we dive in a little bit to Grow Getters and kind of what that's all about,
Yeah, I'd
and
love
how
to
that,
learn from it.
can help people?
Yeah, so you are in the community. Wow, there's been so many iterations, but
Yeah.
it started a few years ago where we just put on a few charity events. We did an event for cystic fibrosis. We did an event for the Alzheimer's Institute,
Hmm.
and we would have networking and speakers. So we would have speakers come in, educate, and then we have networking in breakout rooms, completely virtual. And that I mean, people loved it, so it became a monthly thing where we would have a monthly networking event.
Hmm.
And over time, um, transparently, people were like, Ben, you should be paying. You're giving so much value. So just over, wow, by now it's been a year and a half ago, we launched an inner circle, which is a mastermind for grow getters. And what's a grow getter? It's a growth minded business leader, really just a human being that ultimately they're a go getter. They go out and get it. But if we run really fast in the wrong direction, what happens is we have to turn around and run back.
Hmm.
So it's growth oriented people that want to grow together. And recently, as of literally, wow, at the time of the recording, only like 90 days ago, we launched We All Grow Together,
Hmm.
which is the free community. So, to simplify it, we put on free networking events that are virtual. There's a free community at weallgrowtogether.com that's a calendar, a forum where people can promote their business, ask for something, AI question, sales question, et cetera, et cetera. And there's an inner circle. But as we started with, it's all about that peer to peer support. That if we show up and help one another, that's one thing I like about Rochester, and part of why I've stayed here is the community really has its people have each other's back.
Hmm.
And when you build those kind of communities, I believe we all get better in the long run. It's hard to explain because it's been years,
Yeah.
and at no point did I have a perfect business plan. It was more just like, how can we find unique ways to get people to come hang out and spend time together and share wisdom and ideas
Mhm.
and services as well.
Yeah, and it's great because like there's themes for, each week. So we meet kind of weekly and then a little bit more than that sometimes too. And there's themes to every meeting that we have. And some of them are, focused on helping each other, like this week. And it was like putting people in the hot seat, right? And so they get to ask a question and the community comes back and answers, and supports them in that question or request in their business. But then there's other things where you get access to some really great business talents, and that kind of developed over time too, Ben. Like you just through your podcast and you're connecting, like how did that kind of come to be where you're like, you know what, this is a really good asset I can really pull into the community?
I think proximity is one of the greatest things, whether it's having a coach at the work or a mentor at the workplace that is going to take you by the hand and show you the way, or a coach for your business. I was putting out all these podcast episodes and meeting all these brilliant people. So I'm like, why not try to bring these human beings into the mastermind? And oftentimes we replay those Ask Me Anythings with those
Mm-hmm.
international mentors on the podcast. So this mentor who in some cases, like Chris Van Vliet has over 1 billion views on YouTube. He is reaching way more people than the small number in the mastermind. But it's, hey Chris, can you come educate these entrepreneurs? And then we post it as a podcast episode as well. And it's just a way to bring what transparently, it's a little bit like more of I don't want to be ego based, but I meet really cool people and I want my friends to meet them. So I'm like,
That's real.
Yeah.
come into the mastermind and yeah, we all grow together and learn together in there.
What kind of people, what kind of business people, artisans, who is part of this? What kind of businesses and jobs and personalities are you seeing in your grow getters and your masterminds?
Yeah, when you look at like job function, it's generally entrepreneurs like so smaller business, sole proprietor, entrepreneurs, marketing and sales. I kind of put that on the umbrella of kind of revenue driven, that a big part of what they do is driving income for the organization. It could be their own, but they're there to drive income. So they see the value in networking and finding opportunities and possibly finding clients or new ideas through the group. But what kind of people? They're heart-centered human beings, and that's really the core of it. I haven't said it often. I feel like people self-select out, but I used to say no a-holes, no jerks. We want heart-centered human beings because I even put out a LinkedIn poll one time. Before I launched weallgrowtogether.com, I had two ideas. We all grow together or I get growth. And when you think about a grow getter, the concept is they get growth. I go out and get it. I don't wait for the magic to happen. I find opportunities. I go out, I meet the right people, I get growth. So I actually liked that title. But we all grow together. I don't have it in front of me, but won over 90% of the votes. So even someone who goes out and gets growth, even someone who is a grow getter, even someone driven, the poll was over 90%. We all grow together. And I think that speaks for itself that even very driven people do better when they're with peers. And that's where all the magic happens. So it's heart-centered people that go out and get growth, but they want to do it in a community of like-minded human beings.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and what's in it for me, and some of the others I think would agree, is like as sort of like I have you to bounce ideas off of, Christine, and I have Jess and stuff like that. But also, for the most part, I work even in my current job kind of in a vacuum. Like I need that feedback from people. So sitting in the hot seat and asking a question, or even just being involved in, ask me anything where I can talk to some people that have been in my shoes before. They may have like totally exceeded where I am, and I may never reach. Like I may never reach a billion views on YouTube. It'd be great if we did, but um, they can give me advice on things that I'm not even thinking about, and approach it from an angle that I might not have considered. So that's what I love about the group. And there's just innovative things that, even Ben, I've said this to you probably a half a dozen times, but Ben like puts together these things sometimes, and I'm like, geez, I was thinking about doing something very similar. And it's just like I feel like I'm always a half a step or so behind what Ben is initiating. But it also like, means that I'm on track to doing something right too, because I see Ben as, having a lot of different successes. And that's one of the reasons I kind of asked you to be back on the show, was your innovative approach to certain things, Ben. And one of the things is, you've been exploring is AI, and how can I utilize that, and what is the future with all those things. And you went, and I'd love for you to kind of explain it a little bit further than this. Obviously, you've got the experience, but you went to a conference and you recorded all the things people were saying, and then you put them together into music. Which, from an educational point of view, and the fact that I'm getting my EDD in higher ed, I learn, through like doing, and I also learn through hearing things like over and over and over again. But if you put music into it, that makes it that much easier for me to remember. So I thought that was really cool, and I'd love you to talk a little bit about that specific, notion, and what you kind of came up with and what drove you to do that.
Yeah, we'll dive into the specifics in a second, but two major principles I follow all the time is one, I'd rather be different than better. Now, if I can be different and better, I'm unstoppable.
Mhm.
But I'd rather stand out from a marketing standpoint. I'd rather be unique and stand out and different and maybe even the oddball than try to be the best because
Mhm.
there's a lot of competition. So I'm always thinking about how can I reinvent the wheel?
Mhm.
Literally, how can I do things a little different to get a different kind of attention? The second principle is I want to leave the room better than when I walked in. any way I can. I want to add as much value as possible. So when you talk about making this AI music, for example, I went to a conference, did literally a whole album from the conference. There was
Mm.
I don't know, like 6 speakers and 3 or 4 panels. So I took my phone and I'm like, how can I be different? I always take notes on the phone, but honestly, sometimes I feel like I get distracted. So I'm not going to take any notes. I'm going to click record and I'm going to put it down and record every talk. So I have the capacity to go back and listen to the talk, transcribe it. I might be breaking rules, but I wanted to be as present as possible. So I just recorded each and every talk. Then afterwards, I used a tool that there's many out there. You can just type into Google, transcribe any audio. And I had the audio transcribed. Now I have a transcript of each and every one of the keynote speeches. And then I took the transcript and I put it into ChatGPT, and we can get into the minutia details if you want. But the simple version is I wrote rap songs using the transcript. So how can I be different? How can I leave the room better? I was a paying customer, which is all that matters, because without people putting funds towards things, there's no entertainment industry, there's no conferences, but I still want to find ways to add value. So I record the talk, I transcribe it, I use ChatGPT to turn it into a rap song, and then I use Suno AI to actually that it's like a music producer function that so many of my friends are musicians, even here locally in 585, and I get in trouble because this can't replace live music. No one sees live music more than me. We can go on a tangent, but I'll go out like 3 to 5 days a week to see live music. But this isn't replacing any of that. But I can take the talk and turn it into a rap song in literally like 3 minutes or less. So what happens there? You mentioned it, Nick. It's actually great for the learning. For example, Sarah Delane, I did a podcast with her. She had a line, "My vision didn't scare me, and that scared me." And now there's a song, "My vision didn't scare me." And now there's a song, and it gets stuck in my head, and the message resonates way deeper.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great way, even for the youth, to find a unique way of educating on things that they might not be that interested in. So every single keynote became a song. I was able to put that album out as a podcast, and I messaged each of the speakers saying, "Hey, thank you so much for bringing so much value at this event. These are a couple takeaways I had." I actually took, I didn't even ask permission, but I took your keynote and I turned it into a song. I hope you like it. So
how was the reactions to some of that?
People are like so excited. Like, I've never seen this before. One gal said, "Can I have the source file? I want to play it on my podcast and talk about the conference." How the heck did you do that? Like, it was a great conversation starter. And again, looking at those two principles, rather be different than better. It's a way to differentiate rather than, hey, nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, I loved your speech," but "Hey, I loved your speech. Here's a unique creative thing." And two, I wanted to leave it more value than I took. And it was just my way of saying thank you to the speakers and adding value in a unique way. It was fun.
Yeah. And did anyone get upset at all or taken aback by you utilizing their entire speech and making it into a song? Or
no one had, people don't always voice their concerns, but no one voiced a major concern. An example, he's actually a friend of mine, DJ, talks about discipline, and the AI pronounced it discipline or just couldn't pronounce the word. And I thought he was going to be like, I like the part, but you kind of said my word wrong. But he didn't mention it. It's AI.
Well, it's AI, and like you've been, like, we went to the conference at the Little Theater for the Flower City AI conference, and I'm not sure if you were there for the one where there was a musician that used AI and she was using it as an example but it's interesting because there's people even like hesitate to mention, I won't mention the name, but there's people at Eastman that are even talking about the advantages and disadvantages to AI in music, right? And using it as a tool. And that's kind of like what I talk about the Warner School in U of R. I'm like, we need to be educating our students on how to enter the world of AI ethically, right? And when you can use it, how you can use it ethically, rather than being so afraid that they're going to write their entire dissertation through artificial intelligence and cheat. You know,
Right.
and because it, like it or not, the Pandora's box has been open, right? And like these things are here, and we have to kind of, respond to them. Maybe not, like people say deal with them, but I think it's respond to them and grow with them and figure out how to, utilize them, and what the balance is. Um, but I remember, like, even me, like, it was over a year ago, Ben, but you were talking about Suno or Suno as an option, and I had checked it out. And I said, oh, yeah, but there's a number of lawsuits that are coming against people that are using it,
Mm.
right? And like saying, like, put this song in, and I think they've changed that now. Like if you try to say, put this in the style of the Beatles or something like that, it's too specific, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, what's funny about that is you can just go to ChatGPT and say, describe the Beatles,
yes.
and then you would just take the description and use that. But
Yeah. Yeah. So there's ways around everything. And I guess that's kind of also the point that I'm trying to make. There's ways around everything. And honestly, there's a bunch of songs about this too, but cheaters are going to cheat,
mm,
right? No matter what the tools are or how they do it, they're going to do it. And that's why I think like our educators and people have to kind of educate people on how to do things ethically and whatnot. But so I really like, I thought that was a very innovative approach to learning, and it made me think of like I'm Just a Bill on Capitol Hill and some of those other songs that
yeah.
stuck in my head, because as soon as I listened to that podcast where you were sharing all the different the songs and the speeches, I'm like, I was retaining more because I'm like, wow, that's really catchy. And I'm like, I was stopped at a stoplight and I had my windows down, and I don't even remember which song was playing, Ben, but like it was playing and it was pretty loud. And the people next to me in the car, the one girl was kind of going like this. And I think she was trying to figure out, like, I don't know what this song is.
Well, and let me
So
just ask you this one
yeah,
question. So you weren't at this conference.
no.
Did it make sense out of context?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the things that they talked about, and when you go to these things, they're motivational speeches almost, right? But they also have these nuggets of information. And like talking about discipline and talking about how like you need, to focus and get your things in order to be an impact. It made a lot of sense, and maybe it made a lot of sense in a different context for me because I'm listening to it, not being immersed in the entire situation, but I'm definitely getting stuff out of it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the reply because I feel like some of the best things, there's kind of like the insiders, because anyone who was at the conference knows the insider scoop of what they talked about, but it also is made for the greater mass, which I just think there's opportunity there. I haven't really thought about this much for schools, but if you could take a boring topic and turn it into I'm Just a Bill, turn it into a
Yeah,
Kendrick Lamar style song, I think that could be revolutionary.
for sure. I mean, the best teachers, you think about like maybe even a Montessori type school, or an innovative school, like some of the high schools, like the tech classes and like, the music themed like high schools and things like that. They're still learning math. They're still learning science, but a lot of them are learning it from a different like angle that is engaging. And you think about the best teachers are the ones that can engage their students and
Yeah.
meet them where they are at, right? It doesn't matter how old you are, like there's like a skill or a talent in some of these teachers, that like can really inspire, right? And not just be teaching from a textbook, or from state standards and stuff like that. You're reaching them where they need to be. And I think there's a cool movement right now, like where people are on the one hand realizing that college isn't the right solution for everybody, right? And I work at a college, and I shouldn't probably be promoting that, but it's true. I mean, there's the trades, there's different ways of learning. I met with an alum one time when I was fundraising, and he said, you know, I learned more from watching my YouTube video how tos than I did in college. And he's like, partly that was on me because I was partying a lot. but also partly it was the way that that college was teaching. So what's next in Ben's innovational experience? Like what are you looking at now? What's something on the horizon?
Nothing.
Nothing. Awesome. Well, it's been great. Thanks for being on the show, Ben.
What's in and so I've been traveling a bit more. One thing that's interesting is I worked. So you mentioned that I just always seemed a step ahead.
Mhm.
That could have been the case. I also was putting in unrealistic hours for like 4 years straight. So when I say I'm not sure what's next, I actually kind of say that with like a smirk because it's right now I'm just trying to make my current services better. I want to make the community better. I want to make the podcast cleaner, crisper, reach more people. Um, what's next? I've been trying it all. On the music thing, one thing that's super fun is anytime I have a keynote speech or a talk, I'll create a custom song for the talk. It
Mhm.
goes back to that principle of I'd like to be different. I'd like to be different and better, but I'd rather be different than just better. So if I want to stand out at a conference,
Mhm.
I'll put together custom music related to the conference. So I haven't even walked on stage yet, and people are like, "What's going on here?" So always trying to find new ways to innovate, but nothing major comes to mind. But one thing I like to do, and I encourage a lot of people to do, is if you have an idea, just try it. What's the worst
Mhm.
that could happen? Just try it, dabble, have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like what you said about, wanting to be different rather than better, but better, both would be great, right? But people remember different.
Yeah.
If you are like, the best or let's say one of the best at something, you'll blend in with the other people that are also one of the best at something. Like people will remember you, but like people will remember, like, I'm not calling you an oddball, but people will remember the oddball, right? The thing that's a little different, that they have never seen before, a lot longer than somebody who's like really great, but along with a whole bunch of other great people, right? And so I just think that that's an awesome approach, Ben. And I also like that you're kind of concentrating a little bit more on, you know, what you want to do better or do best, right? Because as I've explained on this podcast and everybody knows, I dabble in a thousand different things, and I
Yeah.
do need to kind of focus in a little bit. I need to kind of learn from Ben in that regard and try to, like, perfect some of the things that I'm doing rather than just keep on expanding my repertoire. So
Tiny tangent, but one thing I like about Rochester and the 585 is there is no shortage of oddballs. And I love that.
lots of people to remember because they're different. So, um,
Ben, tell us a little bit. I want to kind of circle back to the We All Grow Together and the Grow Getters.
Mhm.
What's the demographic like within that group? Are you seeing women? Are you seeing LGBTQ plus members, people from different racial and ethnic backgrounds? What does it look like when you're in that room virtually or in person?
Yeah, so I think there's one LGBTQ plus or one lesbian. The demographics aren't all over the place. There's an African American, there's bald people like me, um,
Nick's getting there.
guys and gals.
Yeah.
Um, I'm always open to feedback because I've spent zero time focusing on demographic. It's guys and gals. I think there's a little more women than men, but I've spent no time actually focusing on demographic. It's more focusing on the kind of person.
And I would say, like, I'd add to that, like, the demographic as far as like regional is pretty broad too. And what I also like is it's similar, like, Christine. So when you think of networking groups and like joining like different networking groups, a lot of times they'll be like, well, we have a realtor, so we're not going to bring in another realtor because it's like lead driven. This isn't really lead driven, right? But what's kind of naturally happened is we've gotten pockets of different types of people, different types of entrepreneurs, and different types of business owners. And yeah, there's some like the crossover, like with coaching and video and stuff like that. But we sort of naturally have gotten this great group of eclectic different types of professionals. And surprisingly enough, we are finding, with that variety, we're getting some great answers and feedback to our, like, our hot seat questions, and support that we wouldn't expect maybe in that kind of a group. Because like, I'll use college as another example. We are notorious for hiring only people that worked at colleges. Like, we love to say we're innovative, we're on cutting edge, we think outside the box, but very rarely do you see a college hire somebody that came out of industry, unless it's like a professor in a specific like science area or something like that. So I kind of like that about your group, Ben. It's sort of, and I feel like you didn't recruit specifically into these different areas. It just kind of, everybody kind of came and joined.
Yeah. I just put it out there and see who's interested.
Yeah.
You got me thinking though. I always wonder, like, should I focus on demographics? Should I focus on the kinds of people, ages? It's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I'm one of the younger people in the group. That's
And,
one.
and what's great is you're seen as a leader, right? Like, and I think that's a good thing too. And I don't think you need at this point, like, I think there's a great mix. I have honestly, truth be told to all the listeners, and apology to Ben, I have not been able to be as active because when you guys usually meet is a very difficult time. So when I can jump in, I jump in. But every time I come in, it's nice. I see some new faces. I see some new industries. But one thing always remains the same, in that everybody that is there helping others, and it isn't a business pitch. Which again, so many of these other networking groups, especially the ones that, like, when you go into the inner circle and you pay for those things, they're like, everything's a pitch. And like, sometimes you have to pay to do your pitch, and it just
Kind of the worst,
yeah.
honestly. I mean, it is, maybe it's my personality, but I avoid networking events because so many people want something from me in my position that I don't ever get the real connections. So I've just stopped going. And it's
So,
sad. Like, I don't want that, but I love what you're saying, Nick, how that's not going on with these grow getters, that they're really helping each other, and those connections will organically involve, rather than, I admit I've gone to plenty of networking events where I walk away and just am like, wow, there's hardly any women here. There was not hardly anyone from the Latino community. And everybody that was here wanted something from the magazine. So, I think it's really important that people know that there's spaces where they can just genuinely ask for help and be helpful, rather than grubbing or feeling like someone's grabbing at you all the time. Because those events sometimes, I mean, you guys probably, what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
yeah.
Some people don't know this about me, but I don't like networking. I'm definitely more introverted. I can have a conversation with someone all night long, but I don't. I get anxious in large groups where everyone seems to be overdressed and they're handing out business cards, and like, I don't want to pitch myself. I don't
Yeah.
know. Um, I use the word networking sometimes when I put on an event because it's kind of what people know what it is.
Mhm.
But really, the goal is to hold space for genuine connection, not just for traditional networking. How can we hold spaces where conversations are had, connections are made? I actually think that's like the introvert in me coming out, where let's do networking, but let's do it in a way that's deeper than the shallow. And I think we all agree those are the events we like the most.
Absolutely. Ben, what are some of tell us about some of your 585 connections? When you're working with people here in the area, what are you guys working on? Are there businesses that you're particularly connected with? Tell us a little more. Let's focus it a little bit on the 585.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go off script like a politician for a moment, and we'll get back to the question. But I started my first ever podcast in 2016. It was called Rochester Groovecast,
Mhm.
and it highlighted local music in Rochester, New York. So I was a huge music fan, and all my connections at the time were in the music industry. And I was working in more of a, at the time, it was retail, then I worked for a corporate marketing company. Um, but I music was my hobby, so I started a music podcast and a blog way back, well before I even had the business mindset. Never made any money on it, but started a music podcast, music blog, huge music fan, huge Rochester advocate. And then in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I was broke, unemployed, non essential. I had got let go,
Mhm.
and non essential because the music industry had shut down. So I started a business podcast called Rochester Business Connections. So I went from a Rochester music show to a Rochester business show. Business Ben, music Ben's the same human being. I was just a season in my life, and I was more focused on business. And that's become Real Business Connections, the podcast right now. Now, the marketing firm I run is working with, I have to count five or six local businesses right now. There's a cremation home. It's also a funeral home. There's a real estate agent, esthetician, a few local businesses, web design, local SEO, those kinds of things. And still, part of why I share that whole story is you're going to find me at the Lilac Festival. You're going to find me at Party in the Park. You're going to find me at Bands on the Bricks, which is at the public market. You're going to find me at local music venues. And even if I'm not supporting local businesses with the marketing company, I like to spend time on local entertainment. So Rochester is just a love of my life, and the podcasting industry has me focused way more internationally in terms of what drives revenue. But I'm always going to be a high supporter of local music and local businesses. That's what I spend my money on. I
That's
make money
awesome.
this way, and then I spend it locally.
Good. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was just at the Steel Rail Revival event. I don't know if you heard about that, Ben. But
No.
it's in Fairport. So it was a fundraising event basically, and we had I think it was like 11 stages with like 5 to 7 acts, supporting the Pirate Toy Fund and the
Mm,
Arkham Monroe. And the dogs played there. And initially I thought I was gonna go and sort of do what I normally do, hype up the dogs. But Steve Ball said, they need some stage managers or MCs or whatever. So I ended up going and running two of the different stages
wow.
and entering the bands. And I'm glad that happened because I wouldn't have had the exposure that I got to other bands, other players and stuff like that. And it's just like we do really have. And I always knew this, but I took this event to really experience the like the depth of Rochester's music scene. And it was really only scratching the surface with the players that we had. But yeah, I'll shoot you information about next year's event. I thought it was really cool. I think you'd have a fun time, and Fairport's awesome. So all the different shops and places you can eat and everything.
There's a whole Parrington Amphitheater show they're doing music at as well. And the first time ever, I'm sure there's a come out after it, but hopefully they do years and years. They have this Hoochie
Mhm.
whiskey
Yeah.
and music
Yeah,
festival. And like Joan Jett's one of the headliners. Like
Yeah.
Rochester's
awesome.
pretty cool as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned.
Well, you get Tommy over there at Iron Smoke. He
Mm,
pretty much knows
yeah.
everybody in the music industry, so it's pretty cool.
That's one of my
yeah,
favorite venues for them to play at is Iron Smoke, and I also
yeah.
like Iron Smoke. So awesome. Well, Ben, I think we're kind of winding things down, right? To getting to the end of our segment here. And we do have a new like little ending that you haven't experienced before, that I think is pretty cool. So we're doing our 585 terrific top 5 takeaways. So we have 5 more questions for you. They're all Rochester specific. And we'll kind of start with actually some of these might be hard. We'll see. So
Yeah.
what's your favorite like event or like annual festival here in the 585?
Lilac Festival.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
so
a
a
good
hard one. Can I give you 5?
Sure, give us 5.
Yeah.
585. No, 5. Five's good.
Lilac Festival, Party in the Park, Fringe Festival. I,
Oh, yeah.
and I already correct my answer before, the International Jazz Festival.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's the best. I love that one.
The more I think, the more I can just come up with more and more. Corn
You might
Hill
have
is great.
585.
Corn, I think I need fine. We'll say Corn Hill.
Cool.
We'll stop there.
Awesome. All right. So what would be your kind of go-to coffee shop or hangout spot in the 585?
Coffee shop so
Hangout spot, some people don't drink
yeah.
coffee.
Yeah, I don't drink coffee. I'm a weirdo.
You're not weird. There's multiple
Yeah,
people
you
that
are.
are. Okay.
Yeah, it totally
Christine
weird.
says you're weird, so you must be weird.
I'm just kidding.
So my go-to music venue's Flower City Station, and
Okay.
then beer and music is Three Heads Brewing.
Okay.
I'm a big smoothie guy, so I have Refresh Smoothie Bar all the time. I'll have smoothies before my workouts. Not a big coffee drinker, but what's a Living Roots is a winery. New Roots Coffee House is where my girlfriend always gets coffee. Right down it's a tiny little, and they do music lessons there. A lot of music
Awesome.
this time,
Aw.
but
Yeah, that's a cool
New
place.
Roots Coffee House is a great place. It just took me a second because I had Living Roots, which is a great winery, stuck in my head.
Yeah. Okay, so you've touched on this a little bit, but like what maybe is a 585 business that you just like can't stop supporting? You can't stop going to.
Let's think of one I haven't mentioned. I'll just say Flower City Station.
Okay.
I already mentioned them.
I'm taking over all these questions, Christine. Do you want me to continue?
No, keep going.
Okay.
You've got the list in front
All
of
right.
you.
Yeah, I pulled it up. I cheated. So okay. What would be one thing that you would tell a visitor to the 585 that they cannot leave Rochester without visiting or doing?
Can they leave Rochester?
You're not allowed to leave.
It can be the 585,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and this is going to be a small tangent, but one
Sure.
thing I like about Rochester isn't just Rochester. Like, I go to the beach, walk the pier, Webster Park, see the nature,
Yeah.
the hiking. I grew up near Ellison Park, love Ellison Park. But one thing I love about Rochester is how darn close we are to the Finger Lakes, how close we are to Bristol, how close we are to frickin' Toronto and Niagara Falls. Like, part of what's great about Rochester is you're less than 2 hours away from an entire wallpaper worth of options. So
Yeah, absolutely.
see the nature here, but then maybe go see a mountain or a waterfall or something as well. You don't have to stay in Rochester, but it's a great place to return home to as well.
Yeah, we're like a hub. We're like a hub that no one thinks of us as a hub, but we really are. We are like, one step away from really great things outside of the city, even just that's really cool. So I guess the last one that I'll throw out to you is what makes 585 feel like home to you?
So that's so tough because this has always been my home. It's great having so many friends and like my history rooted here. I'm obviously a big music fan, so I love the local music scene here. We've talked about it. I love the diversity. I like the weirdness. Rochester does not come without some flaws, but I like that because I never know what's going to expect. I like walking the streets of the city. Now, granted, preferably not super dark and in a group, but I like watching the streets of the city and seeing what shops are opening up and seeing some of the graffiti and the art and the paint. And yeah, I can't answer that question because I've never seen Rochester as anything but home.
I think you answered the question
I like
beautifully.
that. I think you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Well, thanks, Ben. Thanks for coming on again and
Thank you
sharing.
so much.
Yeah, it's great.
This is
for having
fun.
me.
I'm glad we got to finally meet.
Me too. Yeah. Well, next time you guys can pick the spot because I feel like I pick 50 at a time. Y'all can pick the spot. I'll be there.
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
We'll have to
Sounds good.
go to Three Heads or something. But But Ben, is there anything else you'd like to leave? Parting words, how to connect with Ben?
We talked about, I mean, you can type in weallgrowtogether.com if you'd like.
Yeah.
We all grow together. Oh, my words just went into one word.
That's okay. It's just what I do all the time.
That's where the community exists. So if you type in weallgrowtogether.com, it'll take you there. If you look up Real Business Connections, you'll see the podcast. I do have a Rochester segment. We rebranded, but we still have almost 150 Rochester-based episodes. That's called Rochester Business Connections. Yeah. But beyond anything, subscribe here. Leave a comment wherever you found this. If you know our two hosts, reach out personally. Let them know that they're doing cool things. And I appreciate you guys keeping up the good work.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben. That's awesome. You're so sweet. This was fun.
Yeah.
And I need a little on-air thing like you have. My door. I'm gonna figure that out someday.
That's awesome. Yeah, we got to do that. We can just put one on virtually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Ben, thank you again for being on the show. And I urge our listeners to check out Ben Albert, check out weallgrowtogether.com, do all the things, because Ben, is just like home is Rochester. Ben, I can't think of Rochester without Ben Albert. So thanks again for being on the show, my friend.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, you take care. Bye, guys.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of That Sounds Terrific in the 585. Check out our website, www.thatsoundsterrific.com, to see a full list of episodes and learn more about our hosts, Nick Koziel and Christine Green. Be sure to find us on your favorite social media platforms or podcast listening service by searching That Sounds Terrific, and feel free to give us a 5-star rating if you enjoy our show. Until next time.